Uh, Welcome to our session this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And I am Marcus Robbins, by the way. I'm the Central Upper Peninsula and NMU archivist. And I'm here to introduce our two speakers. I'll do them one at a time. Our first speaker this afternoon is David Horne. He's the superintendent of the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. And he's been a superintendent at Pictured Rocks for 4 years now. But he's been in the National Park Service for 30 years. And I've only been at NMU not quite 25 years, so I can't imagine. It's ready to retire for me. And he's worked at, like I said, at Pictured Rock for 4 years now. And he's going to talk about the Lakeshore. During his talk, if you'd like, I'll probably motion to him about 20 minutes in. So
can everyone hear me? Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. So as my first slide talks about, I was asked to talk about challenges at the park. And one of them is, or a primary one is our visitation. It's just really exploded the last few years. So I guess what I wanted to start with is who's been to the, or who hasn't been to the park? That's probably easier. Everyone's been to the park? Okay, well, I didn't know what to expect. So I just started off with some basic stats of what we are. We've been a park since 1966, 35,000 acres of national lakeshore. That's government land. The whole park, including the inland buffer zone, is about 73,000. 12,000 acres of designated wilderness. That's the Beaver Basin Wilderness Area. Beautiful area. The whole park's gorgeous, but that's really nice. 100 miles of trails and 42 miles of the North Country Trail, and you can see the rest. You've been there. So what I've put in here, I'll just blow through these fairly quickly because it's just pretty pictures of the park, just in case somebody hadn't seen it. And these were done by a professional photographer. I had his name on the first one, but I can't recall. So it's a nice place. I don't think I have to sell it to you. The theme is the increased visitation. So I asked, our chief of interpretation has been setting out game cameras, and really she wanted to get the ice formations coming in and then leaving, and do some time-lapse photography, that kind of thing too. So this one was at a place called the Curtains, and this is what we got. Instead of it taking a picture every day, it took a picture every time it was triggered. The Curtains, yeah, and this is an indescript area just right off of Sandpoint Road. The ice climbers go there, and you just walk off the road 100 feet. So this is what we got instead of. So you can't even see the ice coming in and out. It was triggered all the time with people. And what we found is it used to be ice climbers going in there all the time, but now it is probably 5 to 1 tourists, just people wanting to go see the ice formations, 5 tourists to every 1 ice climber. So Sandpoint itself has gotten really crowded, all summer long. This last summer, the parking spilled over onto the headquarters lawn. There was just no parking down there all summer, especially on warm, sunny days. And then even these areas in the winter, ice fishermen, ice climbers, and tourists, it's just really filled up down there year round now. And that's been in the last few years. So what we're looking at is doubling our visitation over the last 10 years, and 141%. In the last decade, and 40% last year alone. The park's infrastructure is pretty much, for the most part, the same as it was in 1966. We have a new maintenance facility, but aside from that, a lot of our facilities are in old Coast Guard stations, which are great. I'm actually former Coast Guard, and so I love being in those old buildings. They're beautiful buildings. The budget in the last decade hasn't changed much at all either, except for what we pay ourselves has gone up gradually over that time. So it's a kind of a net loss as far as operations go. And then as a result of that, the staffing is decreased. I'm not saying all this to complain. That's just kind of the reality of it right now. So that's what our visitation looks like. And you can see this was a COVID year, this one, and we were expecting it to drop. Everyone's masked up, everyone's told to stay at home and all of that. And it just exploded during COVID. And I think people couldn't fly. They still wanted to get outdoors. So we had a lot of visitation from all over the Midwest. So I think that's what happens there. We don't get our end final count until December. It's by calendar year. So we're thinking it might go get bigger than this too. This is 1.2 million, that bar on the right. 1.2 million? 1.2 million visitors. The year before was a record at 858,000. And we thought that was crazy busy. So last year was just ridiculous.
I don't believe that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Actually, how do you count that? Because I've been there several times and I've never counted.
You've been counted.
I have? How have you been?
We do mostly vehicle counts. We know exactly how many guided kayak trips. We know exactly how many boat tours, how many people got on boat tours. And every access point into the park has a vehicle counter. And then there's a formula through studies that it's however, 2 points, whatever people per car. So it's relatively accurate. And that's been unchanged. That methodology has been unchanged for several years. So even if it's not an exact number, the growth is still pretty similar. Go ahead. Pardon me?
Do you have trail counters?
We don't. We're starting to do that. But and it's actually it's fairly involved to keep all these things up and running. But that's a great idea. We're trying to head that direction. This is when everyone comes. A lot of ice climbers, people in the winter, but July and August, it just really explodes. That's when most of the people come in there. We're sold out. As soon as you can start making campground reservations, it's sold out for the year. So if you want to make reservations, get on there right when it opens up on rec.gov. And then this is economic contributions. This is from, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a website down there. That methodology was developed by University of Michigan, I think. And obviously with more visitation brings in more money to the local communities. And that's what the breakout looks like for that site. So what was the last year? $54 million to local communities. So I'm talking about visitation. So I thought I'd just discuss one trailhead, one little parking lot, Chapel Trailhead, because it's representative of what's going on throughout the park. And this is an important place for us because it's pictured rocks, the big cliffs. This is how you access those areas by foot. So a little more details about it. Like I said, it's a primary destination, the Chapel Loop. You get into the Grand Portal, all the big, really scenic vistas are down these trails. It's the equivalent of a small logging road. And at the end of it, there's a little dirt parking lot, about 50 spaces in it. And this was our count this year. I didn't check it right before this. So this is about a month or two old. I mean, the visitation's really gone down in the last month, obviously, but can you imagine that for those of you who've been down there, 74,000 cars this summer in a 50 lot space there. We did change this where we had the vehicle counter in the parking lot or right before the parking lot. And what happens is people park, a mile or two away from it. So we moved the counter back because we're missing all those cars that didn't make it all the way in there. So what happens, you go there on a Saturday in July, you should get there by no later than 8 o'clock because it instantly fills up. And then it's just, if the later you get, the more penalized you get, the longer your hike is going to be parking back on the road there. Which may not be a big deal, but this is what it looks like. And this has got some detail in it. Our area, the government-owned area of the park, we've put up no parking signs. But as soon as our land stops, we have no jurisdiction there. We have no enforcement. We have no authority. And those signs stop. And this happens on both sides of the road. And you can just see how wide that is. So there's a lot of missing, rear view mirrors, side view mirrors. There's a lot of conflict with pedestrians walking where cars and just trying to get around each other. Two cars coming this way and trying to get around each other. It's really difficult. And it's just a mess. Our employees, one of the toughest jobs in the park with this visitation is custodial, and that has to get done or, bad things happen. So that has to happen every single day. And our custodians won't, if they don't get down there and out of there by 8 in the morning, they're done. Go ahead.
Oh, it's happening to a lot of our national parks.
That's true.
Phenomenon. Like Yellowstone is one way. Well, one way now.
That's actually a great point. This is not unique to Pictured Rocks. National parks in general have just exploded with visitation. It's a good thing. People are getting out to see their parks. But I feel like we're really chasing behind this problem. We are definitely not out in front of it. But that's what it looks like. Has anyone seen that firsthand? Yeah.
No, they have signs up and you can't.
Yeah.
Spaces. And they should be parking them because that's erosion of the land.
Oh yeah.
Have there been any?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean,
Surprised you're
yeah, let's knock on some wood here. But yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point. There's some really aggravated people too. I saw a semi truck go down there and had to back out.
The difficulty is, and how do you get that area?
That's a great point. And that's a huge concern. That's why we're really trying to solve this problem. And I'll go into more detail, but yeah, it has happened. 911 calls have gone unanswered. Are you in emergency services? Yep. Have you tried to go down there?
So I do not work in Elgin County, but I live.
Okay.
So I've been monitoring what's happening.
Yeah, it's a real threat. We get calls down there, and what we end up doing, it's actually faster to take a boat there and hike in. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we are in a society. If they can access higher.
Yep.
And
Oh, it does happen. When we get the call, we go through what's called a search urgency chart, and we try to weed those out. Are you just tired or are you really, really hurt? Because if you're, relatively young, healthy, good weather, you're walking out. I mean, but that's an excellent point. So I know, speaking of the choir, because everyone knows what the park looks like, but that's the area. That's the Chapel Basin right there. And you can see little town of Melstrand. They have my wife bought a coffee cup that said conveniently located in the middle of nowhere. But this is a 5-mile road to get into there. And that's what it looks like from a satellite. And that's the little problem child right there, that little dot in there. And the close-up looks like that. It's just a standard issue parking lot. But it is such a focus area for us right now. It fills up immediately and stays full until September. The quick suggestion people have is just build a bigger parking lot. Yeah, and we did. Believe it or not, this one's bigger than the one we had. But this is an actual map. Our resource chief gave this to me. Um, the Chapel Basin was proposed wilderness. It didn't make the cut. Beaver Basin was the one that got proposed. But it's surrounded by wetland, and this is a wetland map. So we kind of snuck it in there, and it's there for a reason. It's still pretty wet in there, but to bring in that much fill and dump it into wetland, we don't want to do that. That's a national park for a reason. People go there to hike, to see it. It's beautiful. We're trying to be a little more creative and come up with something that isn't a Walmart-sized parking lot in the area that was a proposed wilderness. So here's a close-up of our map, and this is the public land. And our map is actually a little bit confusing. This green, this darker green, is the inland buffer zone, and we don't own that land. That's privately owned land, state-owned land, other government land, but it's not National Park Service land. It's just that red boundary is what that is. So you can tell that this is what we maintain. That's the last few hundred yards of that road.
Is there a reason why it's called a buffer zone? Development allowed?
It's to protect those drainages. This was what the initial proposal for the legislation for the park was, but that would have ended logging in that entire area. So it was intended to maintain logging, the ability to log legally in these areas, but still protect them and protect those drainages going into the park. That's why it's called the buffer zone. Am I eating into your time? Okay. Okay. So this is what it looks like when we started breaking this problem down. This is Alger County owns that first 3.4 miles of road, and they do a fantastic job. Actually, it is filled and graded and wider, and even if people parked on the side, cars can go past each other through that area. This is the state of Michigan. This is DNR land, or a half mile, and then a little over a mile and a quarter or so is private land, Hancock Forest Management. And then this little chunk at the end is National Park Service land. So that little chunk is very well maintained. We signed it. It's actually too much signage. It looks like a sign forest. It's no parking, no parking, no parking, because it just fills up. But I just described what it kind of looks like. And through this process, we discovered or rediscovered that we have an agreement, so we can work on and invest federal money into the DNR land. So we've done that. We've put out a bunch of gravel, bless you, bunch of gravel, grading it. And so it's really that private section that's in the middle now that we really can't do anything with. We can't use government time and money on. And that's what the ownership map looks like. And this light section here is the private land. So one idea that we talked about, we can't really, it didn't get any legs yet. So I thought I'd still just talk about it. The private section, we thought if we could put expanded parking outside of the park, and then even shuttle, or even make this that red, the new start to the trail just during the summer months. So at least you're not sharing a road with cars, with moving vehicles. And what that would look like is, you could do the big 200 space lot there. It adds another mile or mile and a half to your hike to get into the cliffs. But that could be one idea. And we just had somebody draw that up, what it could look like. DNR's been great to work with. There's a lot of legal reasons why we can't do that. We can't purchase land from DNR. They can give it to us, but this isn't working right now. But we've got people still working on some other concepts for this. If you have any ideas. What we're trying to do is move the main parking out of Chapel. It's just not a fun experience for visitors. And does anyone go there and hike on a Saturday in July? No, okay. The locals don't do that. Right, because you fall for that once. The resource damage, the dust, the parking up on side of the roads, it gets pretty bad down there. The pedestrian and vehicle conflicts, that's a big deal. We like to make it scalable. You know, this time of year, we just open it back up, and the parking lot's fine. You can go there on a Saturday at noon and you'll be just fine this time of year. And by doing that, it would limit additional impacts to Chapel and allow for emergency vehicle ingress and egress if we could figure out how to do that. So that is, the park is a very linear park, and you access it by a few roads and roads and trails that go into there. So this is probably our hotspot, but Beaver Basin, Sandpoint, pretty much all of our access points are really impacted. Lots of people coming in there, not enough parking. And the trails themselves, when people do make it in there, a trail, you used to having a nice 4-foot wide dirt trail. They've really become kind of pedestrian highways out there, some of them. And social trails has been a big impact. A social trail is where a couple of people go to explore, and it looks like a little bit like a trail now, and people will keep following that. And now it's just honeycombed with all kinds of social trails in there too. Our trail crew spends a lot of time trying to rehab those areas. So I'll pause there. And that's as far as I'm going to go with Chapel, but that's where we're at. And I've got, yeah, any questions? Go ahead.
I've done the shuttles at Lakeshore and Acadia, which have multiples more. Question of traffic and numbers. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. No. That's a great question.
So the question was about shuttles and what's the thresholds when shuttles are appropriate or not appropriate?
It's a great question. We have talked about it. We need a place to put cars first. Where do we shuttle them from? And we really don't own that. You saw the Park Service land. It's a skinny strip along the coast. So it would have to be a private company, a commercial use authorization. We could partner with somebody who bought 10 acres. We've had the state of Michigan approach us about electric vehicles, setting up shuttles, with which all great ideas. But it's really, part of it is kind of beyond us because we don't have the land.
So it would be a longer shuttle ride, but what about a parking lot next to the Millstrand store, which would bring them customers? And then you'd have a spot outside the DNR land.
I think that's a great idea. You should put a business package together.
Any other questions for
That's
David?
not our land, but we are entertaining that. We've reaching the point where that little 50-car lot is not adequate for the kind of visitation that gets down there. So it is a little bit of a frustrating problem, and we are looking at that's kind of next. That's kind of the nuclear option, because it takes a while to where Zion got to. You don't go into Zion anymore. You go to the bus stop, and it takes you in and out.
I was
Yeah.
in Acadia both before. Acadia before the shuttle and Acadia shuttle are much
Mhm.
much better. Certainly Glacier took the shuttle and locked back. We weren't coming back until we did. I could see. Of course, the problem is that did that, could we then?
Well, thanks. You know, on that subject real quick, and we'll get to you, but I will note that Altran, our public transportation folks, don't go down to those places. They can't get out of there once they get down there.
We have a question here.
Have you guys ever thought about implementing like a park fee, or like, is that in the plans anytime soon?
It
Like
is.
entrance fee?
We proposed that. We put that out for public comment. The public comment period ended. We're tallying that. We put the proposal up through our regional office and through Washington. So it's still being considered, very much considered. That's something that we don't decide. It's a national program. It's recreation fees for the national park, or actually for all public land. And it would be phased in if it was approved, and it would ultimately be $20 a vehicle with a lot of caveats in there. If you're 62 or older, it's free. If you're a veteran, it's free. If you have a fourth grader or a fifth grader, I can't rattle off all of the, special considerations, but $20 a car, generally speaking.
I think I'm know what I'm talking about, but don't some of the U.S. national parks require, reservations ahead of their planned visitation, like Yellowstone and some of the and Yosemite? You can't just show up anymore, at least not in July and August. So you could do that for pictured rocks too.
Yeah, we could. I mean, I used to work in Yosemite, and I've learned recently that there's a reservation system to hike up Half Dome, a reservation to take a hike. So you saw the visitation chart. Like I said, we're kind of chasing this problem. It's just really exploded. So these are great ideas, but they take a lot of time. It took years for Yosemite to get to that point.
I'd like to move on to our next speaker. Yes, thank you, David.
Thank you. Can I sneak one more quick thing in? So on a positive note, this is something that this is just a concept, but this is Sandpoint down here. We've been working with City of Munising, and just conceptually, but potentially linking a multi-use trail to get more cars off the road, and just it'd be a fun experience to be able to walk or ride a bike from downtown Munising all the way into the park. So just a thought.
That would be excellent.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Well, I'm hoping our next speaker can maybe help explain how it was. There's about 1.2 million people at Pictured Rocks, which is really hard to fathom. Tom Nemechek has roots in the Western UP, having been partially raised in the Ironwood area. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran, having spent 4.5 years at Sawyer. He's worked in broadcast management. Previous to his current position, he was the executive director of the Western UP Convention and Visitors Bureau for 7 years, and now he is the executive director of UP Travel and Recreation, where he's been for the last 26 years, and he has no interest in retiring, which I find rather remarkable as well. After such a large, so.
Thanks. I'll probably end up sitting down because it's a pretty informal organization here. I'll give you just 1 minute on who we are. Upper Peninsula Travel and Recreation goes back to 1911. So it's all 15 counties together under an umbrella to promote Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And if you think about it, how they all got together in 1911 to do that is pretty amazing. They sent 6 to 8 people from each county together to say they needed to work together, something we should think about today, working together. And they all came together and formed an organization. And I don't know about you, he talks about the roads being bad, but 1911, the roads would have been a lot worse. So I can't help but think what Dave's talking about is the fact that it feels like that song from whenever that was, the 70s, that we take paradise and put up a parking lot. It seems like we're approaching that particular issue. So we do a lot of, I'm a tourism promoter is what I am. You can want to throw sticks and stones at me for having some of these people we're responsible for coming up. That's what our marketing program does. We don't have any development plans, or we don't work on events or anything like that. We're strictly promotion. But naturally, after doing it 26 years, I've got a pretty good understanding of what's going on around the UP. And the last couple of years have been extremely challenging for a lot of the residents in the UP. It's challenging for the businesses as well, who are involved in tourism from a staffing standpoint. And we know that we have our hospitality restaurants and stuff like that, they're having a hard time staffing. So in case you've got 1,000 people trying to eat tonight and the restaurants can only serve a couple hundred, So there's a lot of things going on. This pressure that Dave talked about has been dramatic and dramatically quick. The park was growing. The park, first of all, the park is the #1 attraction in the UP. Many years ago, not that many actually, Mackinac Island was. But some years ago, probably 10 years ago now, Pictured Rocks became the #1 attraction in the UP. From a tourism standpoint and from a marketing standpoint and from how you spread the dollars around, which is part of the equation here for any tourism, is the fact that it's located in the middle of the UP. And to get to it, you've got to go through either the Western UP or the Eastern UP. So consequently, it's a great thing to have your #1 attraction in the middle of the Upper Peninsula. I don't think it was planned that way. I think it just turned out that way. So we're experiencing exponential growth almost. You start talking about 800 and some thousand visitors a couple of years ago, and you go up to 1.2 million. I can tell you that some gentleman over here said something about, I don't believe that. I understand saying that, but I can tell you from the numbers that I see, which are mostly from lodging establishments, as well as campgrounds, those are real numbers. Those are real numbers because we see real people and we see real dollars associated with those visits. So there's a lot of challenge around the whole UP. Yeah, Pictured Rocks is not alone. Misery loves company maybe, but it's not alone in having these challenges. It just happens to be the biggest challenge. Elgin County is a very small county, and Elgin County has the most visitors in the history of mankind for the Upper Peninsula. So that just by nature creates stress and strain with the infrastructure and the residents. And if you're not particularly running a business that the register's ringing all the time, you may not be in love with 1.2 million visitors in Elgin County. And I certainly understand that. Doesn't mean I don't stop promoting the Upper Peninsula, but we certainly understand that's my mission, is to promote. That the problem's there. But there's another problem though. I mean, since this whole thing is about challenges, there's another big challenge I think we have in our communities, and certainly Elgin County is right there again, thanks to the 1.2 million people. But every county in the UP has a challenge when it comes to the proliferation of short-term rentals. People who take their homes and decide to rent them out to visitors. I mean, you could probably say, well, he's just representing the lodging industry and he doesn't want any of those. That's not true. Short-term rentals are our biggest challenge right now in the tourism industry, at least as it comes to being residents and living in a community. Recently, some legislation, there's the hottest thing going in Lansing right now for anything to do with tourism is short-term rentals. If I took a guess right now on how many proposed bills are in Lansing concerning short-term rentals, it's probably 20 plus. Those are the ones we know about that are being proposed about short-term rentals. Because there's always legislation pending somewhere in somebody's brain or office that they want to do something. And we saw this coming about 8 or 10 years ago. We saw this short-term rental thing start to expand. It's been always there. And I think the shortage of, Airbnb is the one everybody knows now, but remember there's others. There's vacation rental by owner, there's home away, there's people that just plain do it. And it just, again, like Pictured Rocks, it went right through the roof. Well, the biggest problem I think we have as residents is that the short-term rental industry has wanted it to be considered not a business. And they basically have that now, although the bill hasn't been passed yet. They basically want to say, if you own a home and you want to rent it out to transient guests, not people that live there for months at a time, like an apartment rental or a house rental, to transient guests, which means they could be flipping those nights often, and they will, because transients don't stay 30 days. that would not be considered a business, which means your zoning all of a sudden, in my opinion, becomes worthless inside of a community. Imagine yourself, and it is happening. I'm not putting something out there that's hypothetical. Imagine yourself living in a neighborhood in Marquette, any community you'd like to pick, and you're in a community, you've got 12, 15 houses on your block, and all of a sudden 5 of them decide that they're going to start renting them out to transient guests. So every night, every 3 nights, every 5 nights, you're going to have a whole bunch of new neighbors. Could be 5 people in a house. It's never 2, I can promise you that. It's 5 people in a house. It could be 20 people in a house. There's no regulation on how many are going to be in the house. And they're flipping those places and those people in and out. So you're in a community now that you've got rotating transient guests in and out of your block on a regular basis. They're not your community residents. These are visitors, people on vacation. And I hate to say many of them have a little bit of a different attitude when it comes to how they treat a community that they're visiting versus how they treat a community where they live. And I think the people, the residents of the Upper Peninsula, need to get extremely active in slowing this down and not let Lansing, and I'm not a politician, promoter, not let Lansing tell communities, you can't control that. You can't regulate what is happening in your community. And again, the pressure is by the people who want to do this, which are people that invest in these things. This is not your neighbor. Very seldom is it your neighbor that says, I'm going to take a few, they always talk about, well, they can rent a room out. Well, that's really rare. These houses are bought by many people. One person might come to town and buy 10 houses in Marquette, or 5, or whatever it is, and they're absentee. They rent the houses out. They're as a business, although they want to be told they're not a business. In my opinion, if you hand money to somebody for a service or a product, sounds like a business. And we're being told that they don't want to be businesses. And one of the reasons they don't want to be businesses is that if it's not a business, it becomes extremely hard to say you can't have these in your community. Because all of a sudden, well, it's a house. It's a home. It's not a home anymore. It's a house. And it's a business house. It's a house that's being rented out. I think our communities have to realize we don't want to wake up tomorrow any more of this problem, wake up with more of this problem. And the explosion in things like pictured rocks and the explosion of visitors, and it's an explosion. I mean, I can't argue with 800 and some thousand and 1.2 million in 2 years. I used to hope that the Upper Peninsula tourism industry would go by 3% a year. So in my 26 years as director of UP Travel, I mean, as a marketing person, if we grew by 3 or 4%, well, first of all, I took all the credit because it was all the great, it was all the great marketing that we did. Now, when it wasn't growing, well, then it's the damn economy. It wasn't me. I was doing a great job. So, it's everywhere. And all of a sudden we go from, 3%, 4%, 50%, 800,000 to 1.2. Sounds like 50% to me. So you have to address these things at the local level. If we want to address them at the local level, we don't want somebody to say when I went to school back with, who knows who back then, probably Eisenhower, I don't know. So when I went to school, one of the big things you learn in civics, if they still teach civics, but one thing you learn in civics is the farther away a decision is made from the area that the decision impacts, the less likely you're going to be happy with that decision. I'm not picking on Washington. I know you're Washington. I'm not picking on Washington. I'm not picking on Lansing. We really do want federal and state governments to run the programs that make our living safe, comfortable, happy. We want good drinking water. We want good roads. We want all these things, health, little thing called community health, something we've been dealing with heavily for the last year and a half. We want those standards set by federal and state government. We really do. Because if that gets only down to the local government, then we might have more of a problem. We want somebody from a distance in those cases to say, you've got to do it, because that eliminates the politics, or at least helps eliminate the politics. But when it comes to the things we should control at the local level, we sure don't want that. You're gonna love, you know, I don't want Lansing telling you that you live in the middle of a block somewhere in Marquette, and they're basically would be telling you, oh, you're gonna love having 5 transient houses in your area. You're going to get to know people from other parts of the country. You're going to get to know people that, you know, it's diversity. We're going to bring, you know, people that drink different kind of beer than we do. You know, there's all these things that they're going to bring to the table. And it's the things they bring to the table that's making all the conflict. And we need to be able to say, no, local communities decide on what our communities are going to look like. And we're going to put our businesses in business areas. Doesn't mean we aren't going to go with short-term rentals, but it better be the decision of the people that live here. You know, if people decide in Marquette, Alger County, Ironwood, pick a town, if you want to decide and you vote on it, or your leaders that you voted on decide, and we all agree, we're never all going to agree on anything, but if we all agree that there's going to be 25 in a given community of short-term rentals, my only hope is if you say 25, it's not 25 in a 4-block area. Density is what tourism and what residents are all about. It's all about density. It's all about density. Where we live, what we do, it's all about density. So all of a sudden you take a densely populated area and you start rotating people in and out. Probably sounds like a broken record, but it's the number one concern, in my opinion, of what we have with tourism in the United States. We're not unique to this. We could be hypercritical to this, though, as a problem over many other areas. As Dave mentioned, Pictured Rocks is long and narrow. But we jam up all the other visitors in a small area as well. Let's get them out at least where we live, on the streets that we live. Sounds like I'm anti-tourism. I'm not anti-tourism. So, but it's real, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not there and it's good for everybody. If I own an attraction, if I'm selling tickets, do I care where they stay? Probably not. More people in the community buy more tickets, so, but the residents need to think about this. So that part of it is, unfortunately, when we talk about challenges, we had challenges the last couple of years. Dave mentioned the people getting in and out of roads, and we had people visiting the UP that have never done an outdoor experience because they couldn't go do an indoor experience. They couldn't go to a city experience. They're scared. They were scared to death to go to Chicago, Detroit, New York, Disney World, anything that was densely populated. So back in April of 2020, when we were like, what is this going to mean to tourism when this whole thing started? Probably 3 weeks. I mean, I canceled $1 million of advertising like that. Probably 3 weeks later, I'm sitting there watching the news or whatever. And I remember we were showing the COVID maps with all the dots all over. I called up my board of directors and I said, that's a billboard for the UP. Because there were dots all over the Lower Peninsula and our dots were spaced all over. I said, I probably don't need to do any marketing. I said, because that's the greatest thing going on right now is that, and that happened like that. In May, in May of 2020, a year and a half ago, we were still under a travel ban. We were under a travel ban. And it was amazing how many people were coming to the Upper Peninsula. And some of it was out of fear. I mean, some of it was, I want to get out of the city. And so it was amazing, disturbing, for some, disturbing for a lot of people. But it happened that fast. It hasn't slowed down. The good news is it is slowing down. Starting last December, year ago, when the vaccine came out, we saw the interest level completely change in the country. Now, it flipped very fast. Doesn't mean we aren't going to get a lot of people. But all of a sudden, their idea of vacationing for a lot of people was opened back up again to Chicago, Detroit, Disney World, more urban areas. Not for everybody. I'm not pretending it's a flip, but it's a very noticeable change in consumer sentiment. Now, what that means for the UP is, and I think we might all like a little bit of a breather, it's bound to be starting to flatten out. And I'm ahead of the curve from what you see, because I'm ahead of the curve because we do the marketing. So when we start to see the marketing response start to go slower, all of a sudden we don't get 800 million website hits. We only get 700 million. We know that it's sliding that way. And it all makes sense. It all makes sense that there's other places to go now that they're comfortable to go. Now, our traditional outdoor visitors and such, I mean, our return ratio is extremely high. We offer a great product to the people that like our type of product. Hence, we get people back. And we got a lot of people that had never been here before. Now, those people are going to bring us more people because many of them is, it's all about word of mouth. So that's all kind of good, but that is good, but we're going to flatten out again and not have the visitors who want to go to a city. And we had people that never had been to an outdoor experience. So what they did is they didn't understand private land. I mean, the private land encroaching across the whole UP, we had people camping on people's, I don't mean like 40, they think if there's trees, it's public, some of the people. Well, or they think, I'm a taxpayer, this is my land. I mean, I know Dave gets that, it's like they pull into the park, it's like, I've been a taxpayer all my life. Why do I have to pay to get in here? And they currently don't. But I mean, we hear that all the time at state parks. I've been paying taxes all my life. Well, that's got nothing to do with the user fee. But still, these new people who had never been to an outdoor environment, didn't understand ethics, morality, didn't understand the way you're supposed to do business as a consumer. They did encroach all over. Some parts of the UP, Dave mentioned all the signs he's got on the road coming in to prevent people from hopefully parking where they're not supposed to park. Well, we've got parts of the UP that you'd think we were in the middle of Chicago, because these big landowners, or even any landowners, 20 acres, 10 acres, sometimes only an acre, certainly people with 400 or 500 acres, they posted signs up and down the road and telling people, private land, big signs. Great look for the Upper Peninsula Tourism Association. I mean, I love driving up to Copper Harbor in the tunnel of trees. Now it's the tunnel of trees and signs, because people that own, that's private land along there. They think it's public land, but it's private land. So all of a sudden, I love taking a travel journalist, which I do a lot of, taking journalists around, write about the UP, write stories about the UP. I love displaying that look driving into Copper Harbor or some other area. So land use is a real problem. And land use is a real problem all the way down to short-term rentals, to the neighbor next to you or the block next to you. So I really encourage people to talk to their local officials, talk to their state officials, and say, we really don't want to be told that these aren't businesses. These are businesses. I'm paying money, I'm renting a house. That's a business. And if we don't do this soon, we're going to wake up having, we don't know how many are in the UP. I can tell you that there are some counties that are running between 500 and 600 of them. Those are the ones we can tell by the platforms, which means I go into VRBO's website, I want to book a room, a house, I go to Airbnb, I go to Home and Away. We have areas that have 400 or 500. Those are the ones we know about. Those are the ones that, you know, once a short-term rental starts to develop a clientele base, let's say I own a hotel or I own a house in Marquette and I'm a short-term rental and I go to Airbnb and I say, I want to be an Airbnb. I want you to book my rooms for my house for me. And it's a great platform because they have national recognition, international recognition. So I buy the house, I tell them this is my price. All of a sudden it's filling up. They get a percentage, keeps filling up over and over and over. And all of a sudden you're just booked with these people and you're overwhelmed. But what happens then is they take that rental. Now they don't know the customer. If I rent a room through Airbnb or a house, it's a long way before I get to know who the owner is because the Airbnb wants their cut. So they keep them separated. They keep it for a long time. The owner doesn't know who's coming. So all of it, then you get to a certain point, they allow you to communicate with the owner. So when they get the person to stay with them and they get to know them or they find out who they are, do you think they book through the platform anymore? So I'm renting it at $1,000 a night and I'm giving Airbnb $200 of the $1,000. That's the contract. Let's say that's all set up. I'm going to get my 800. They're going to get 200. The consumer pays the 1,000. Well, I own the hotel. I mean, I own the house. And I talk to you and you say, oh, I loved it. Well, why don't you come back next year? But you know, you don't have to go through Airbnb. Just book me direct. And I'll cut a deal with you for $800 or whatever, or 900, split the difference. They made an extra 100 and the customer saved 100. Yep.
Really well, but I'm a city.
I'm very aware.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I wanted to say. But first, for everyone in the room, last I heard, the bill's coming up in the Senate on November 10th. That's next week.
Mm-hmm.
It passed the House.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but that was at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Tom, are you ready for questions? Are you?
Yeah, yeah.
517 73. Write this down. 517 373 7840. He's the man representing us on the bill that he is talking about. That vote is next. 517 373 7840.
And I don't want to get the representatives loose on this because they already passed theirs. So keep that in mind too. The representatives, House of Representatives already passed it.
Does anyone have any other questions for?
That was, and this is very interesting, you're talking about Ed McBroom, who just talked down the hall there and was very concerned about the UP, or so he told us. I presume he is. So he's the fellow that we should all be talking to and calling, because this would be get this off. This would be a disaster.
It's one step from being a disaster.
Yeah. I would, being familiar with the history of the UP, I'll just make some comments here, and I don't know if you want to hear them.
We're here.
But tying into what has been said, in the 19th century, prior to say about 1850, before we crossed the Mississippi, there were three places in the United States that were tourist attractions that everybody wanted to see or hoped to see. One was obviously Niagara Falls. Two was, what was I going to say here? Harper's Ferry above Washington, which President Jefferson said was the most beautiful place in the country. And the third place, Pictured Rocks. But the only problem with that was if you could get there. This is before steamboats, and they were coming in with canoes. So, and the other thing about tourism is the other big two tourist places from the beginning, from the time when the fur trade ended and then tourism immediately took over, was Sault Ste. Marie because of the fishing in the river, and then Mackinac Island.
Because of the beaver pelts.
And
It was all because of beaver. Mackinac Island was all about getting the beaver out of the state.
yeah,
Yeah.
but this was after that time. The next industry was tourism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And for the island has been that way.
Well, they surpassed that. They blew by it.
Yeah.
Picture
Or
Rocks is
yeah.
double up Mackinac Island. So
So, one other fact for you. So the city of Marquette is so worried about this. We passed a resolution saying that we did not want this to happen. And I got to be on a press conference with the city of Grand Rapids. Marquette has a limit of 250 short-term rentals. We hit that cap in 2019. There's now a waiting list, but we do limit it to 250. Grand Rapids limits their short-term rentals to 100. Just
and that's as of now, and that's as of until someday they tell you that that ordinance is illegal.
and we had several public hearings and meetings. And I can also tell you in terms of the question of people living in the home in order to be able to own the home because it's so expensive to live here now, 6% of our short-term rentals are owner occupied. 94% of them are absentee, or they do not live in the home. So it is not the case in Marquette that people are doing this in order to live in the home.
And the other thing is that we all have to be aware of, this is what creates housing shortages. Let's say I have a house in the middle of Marquette that's worth $150,000, but it's worth $300,000 if it's a business that I'm renting out. You're getting driven out of your own communities that you can't afford to live in. There's affordable housing is a huge problem everywhere. Marquette has a serious problem with it. Oh, for both houses? No.
We hire about up to 40 seasonal employees every year, and there's literally no housing.
Right.
There's no housing for them, so we don't hire that many.
And that's
People look at the
happening
housing
everywhere.
situation, they can't come.
Yeah, that, to feed the workforce, to keep the money coming in, all that whole thing. But even our residents, our neighbor is not going to be able to afford a house. And the taxes, as we all know, I'm not against taxes, but as property taxes go up, because the place now is worth 300,000, used to be 150, eventually you can't afford the taxes. And that does happen. California 75 years ago put in a cap so that you never pay more than a certain percentage as long as you live there. But as soon as you sell the house, it goes to the new value. We don't want to have to get to that. So or if we have to, we better do it. It does actually, it can't go too fast. Okay. Good. I guess I didn't realize that was in place, but we still don't want $150,000 houses selling as $300,000 businesses. Well, we don't want that. You mean?
In Marquette.
Yeah, it's happening all over. That's what short-term rentals are doing. They're driving up the price.
This is buying house.
But that's what I mean, though. If I come to you and I want to buy your house for 150,000 because that's what it's worth, somebody comes around behind me and says, yeah, like you're saying, and they say, oh, I'll take it for 300,000. All of a sudden, I don't have a house because I can't afford a $300,000 house. So affordable housing is just, there's nothing good about saying something's not a business when it is a business. Okay, that's my soapbox.
Say, I just want to make an announcement to everybody. There's, you can go online and there's a new, it's been going on for about a year. There's a new online journal that deals with problems, and it's called Rural Insights. And recently, Michael Broadway in the geography department and his son put together a very interesting article about the economy in Munising. what, you know, what has happened and with this impact of people and so on. And so, but it's a very, if you're interested in current Upper Peninsula problems and so on, take a look at that. Rural Insights, it's online. Periodically, I have an article getting into the history of the area.
Is there anyone else questioning? Otherwise, we should wrap it up.
I was just wondering more so, do you know of any, I guess, solutions or resolutions that you guys are coming to as far as, you know, the housing shortage? I know you talked about this. I have a good buddy. He lives out in Munising. He's working for, you know, a company out there, but he's still living with his parents because there's no houses that he can, you know, move into. And last I talked to him, he's considered moving down to Appleton because there's no homes up here. And I was just wondering if there's, you know, any.
So all of, yeah, sorry. So all of those things have piled up on top of each other. Basically, we have to turn the housing engine back on. We have to turn. And on top of that, we have climate change. And the fact that another study came out this week saying that Michigan is the place you want to live come climate change because of the Great Lakes. So if we don't plan for it, as they're saying, if we don't get ahead of it, they're going to be here anyway. They're buying the houses anyway. It's already happened. Right. Yeah. If you don't act, you'll be acted upon. And so we are going to be building housing. Come to city commission meetings and planning commission meetings. And there's a lot. And same thing in Munising. I'm good friends with the mayor of Munising. They're working on it too. They're trying.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to wrap it up because we've got another session in a few minutes and they've got to get set up. Thank you very much, David and Tom.